Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. I am at the end of a very long and busy day. So it's been quite a day, hasn't it? It started with my morning yoga class and then went straight into speaking at a trauma conference. And it's just been nonstop. And all day I've been looking forward to being right here with you. How are you all doing tonight? Why don't you say hello and tell me how you're feeling? Is this an old?
No, that's all current.
That's all current. Lovely, lovely. Langelle and Chris and Renee and Angela and Tracy and Carriat are right on top of things tonight. Great to see you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Anyway, tonight, like I said, we're going to talk about anxiety and worry and stress and all of that stuff. But I really want to sincerely and deeply check in with you for a couple of reasons. Because, first of all, you're living with a diagnosis of MS or maybe something else. It's winter, at least here in Ontario, it's winter, which is a whole different layer of stress. By the way, we've been locked down once again, at least here in Ontario, Canada. We've been locked down. I know some of our American friends aren't experiencing the same things we are. But if you're living in Ontario and you're sick and tired of being locked down, give me an amen there. But there's a lot going on. There's an absolute lot going on. And that's enough to make anybody a little worrisome. It's enough to jack up anxiety. It's certainly enough to raise stress levels. And those three are sort of interconnected. So I really, really want to honestly check in. And if you're comfortable sharing, just give us a few words and let me know. Let me know how you are, how you doing, how you have been doing through this whole crazy COVID time. And I see Carriad is Kara. Thank you, Kara, for that correction. So it's definitely safe to say that anxiety, worry, stress are on the upswing the last couple of years. And it's interesting because I always think, being not as young as maybe some of you are, I always think, oh my God, nowadays the stress just seems more stressful and the people seem more anxious and people seem to worry more, but really not so much. I don't know if anybody had a mother or a grandmother that used to say things like, oh, don't make a mountain out of a molehill. Well, what's that? That's just a really old-fashioned way of saying don't catastrophize. Don't get so anxious. Don't make that a bigger thing than it needs to be. But anxiety and worry, they fall on the same spectrum. So, a spectrum is just sort of a range. And so they fall on the same spectrum, but at the same time, they're interconnected. And we don't need to have hardcore lines. We just need to be able to identify more or less which end of that spectrum we're on, don't we? So chances are you experience anxiety and stress and worry to some degree regularly. And they're marked with some of the same experiences of disquiet or overwhelm. But let's look at those three concepts: stress, worry, and anxiety. I put a little graphic on the group page. I love it. I'm totally going to steal it and use it in some of my lectures. And it just identifies the three. It's a circular, 3 circles, and where that particular experience comes from. So whether it's a thought or a mind or a body thing. Okay. So let's start with stress. And stress is pretty simple because on the most fundamental level, stress is a reaction to a threat. It is a life or death situation, or at least that's what it's intended to be. So stress is, yikes, there's a threat. I've got to get out of here. I've got to save my life, mobilize all my systems, and get out of here. We know that has dramatic impact on the immune system. We know it has a dramatic impact on blood sugar regulation. We know it has a dramatic impact on the central nervous system, on the digestive system. And that's why it is so central to managing multiple sclerosis naturally. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because it's a whole, we could spend a whole weekend diving into the physiology and the psychology of stress. Worry is something a little bit different. It's still an active process, but it's an active process about something concrete, and something, it tends to be more short term. So it's generally about something specific. It's a thinking process, and it resides in the mind. So there's a logical component to worry. Your brain is trying to make sense of a real and present danger. Worrying when your fears are actionable makes sense. So what's that mean? That means, what's a good example? So there's a snowstorm. We're supposed to get 30 centimeters of snow. Mike's supposed to pick up the kids at nursery school. And first of all, I'm worried that he's going to get stuck in the snow. I'm worried that he's not even going to get there. And then I'm worried about their safety getting home, because they've got to drive home. That is a perfectly logical thing to worry about, right? It's something short term. There's a concerning situation. You're worried about it, and that worrying can actually activate problem-solving skills, right? Okay, how are we going to do this? Okay, we're going to stay on, hands-free cell phone all the way. So we're going to talk to each other, or I'm going to text you when I get to the school. I'm going to text you when I'm in the car. I'm going to text you, whatever. There's a problem-solving plan. So that's worry. There's something there. There's a problem. It's justified to be concerned about it, and your mind very naturally kicks into problem-solving mode, and it goes away short term. Okay. Anxiety, on the other hand, is different, and I think anxiety is often thought of as an emotion, like anger, like joy, like fear, but it's not an emotion. It's actually a sensation. And I think those of you who have experienced anxiety know that it's that kind of non-specific thing that takes over your body. Has anybody here ever experienced anxiety? That sort of really non-specific. It's not about a problem. It's just a sensation that takes over the body. It resides actually both in the body and in the mind, because what we see with anxiety is the physicality of it in terms of things like migraines, things like irritable bowel syndrome, things like nausea. So this sensation that's coming from the mind is actually playing itself out in the body. Yeah, I think a lot of people have, at the rates that I see irritable bowel syndrome in my clinic, it's like pretty much epidemic. Anxiety is generally super vague, right? Like I have had episodes of anxiety in my life, and when somebody says to you, like, what are you so worried about? What are you so anxious about? It's like the last freaking question you want to hear, right? Because you don't know. It's a sensation. It's not a logical process. Anxiety is persistent, and it can be very long term. It can last for weeks, and in some cases months, right? Um, and it can be absolutely debilitating. So when those concerns go on and on, this is the kind of thing that stops you from doing anything. This is the kind of thing that stops you from making rational decisions or being able to get out of bed in the morning, you know. And it can absolutely make problem solving difficult. So when you're worrying about something, you can do a million things. You can pace, you can distract yourself, you can make worry go away. Anxiety, not so much. And when anxiety goes on and on for a long time, sorry, I realize the smoke is blowing in front of me. I'm just burning an incense over there. I'm trying to get rid of it there. When anxiety goes on and on, the mind can begin to catastrophize things. So if we use that same situation that we were worrying about Mike picking up the kids from daycare in a snowstorm, the anxious mind then goes, oh my God, you know what? Mike could go off the road. Mike could go off the road, go into a ditch. His car could get covered with snow. He could freeze to death. The daycare won't know they're still there. They'll lock up. The kids will be there with no food or water. They're going to starve to death. So I'm going to have a dead husband in the ditch covered with snow and 2 kids that have starved to death in the daycare. And that's literally catastrophizing. And I have literally held safe space for people to share those kind of experiences with me. So I know it to be true. When that goes on and on and on and on, it could actually be something that's labeled, and I'm really not keen on these labels, but generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD, is something where that anxiety just takes over and for months and months and months and months doesn't go away. So everyone gets anxious sometimes, but if things go on and on and on, then it becomes a generalized disorder. And we need help with that, right? We need help with that. So once again, I'd like to hear you. I'd like to hear from you in the chat. Does worry and anxiety impact your lives? And what are some of the things that you've done to get around that, get on the other side of that? And I see Kara saying, more anxiety with this lockdown in Ontario, for sure. I would 100%. I would 100% agree. And I'm finding, I don't know about you all, and this might be just too much information about me, but I've been getting angry, and I've been getting angry about the lockdowns, like not in a huge socio-political way, just, I can't go swimming, or, just really stupid angry. So I hear you. Absolutely, Kara. So what do you do if you find that your worry or anxiety is excessive? And ultimately that's what we want to talk about, because we want to help each other get to the other side of these things, right? So if you worry excessively, or if you're struggling with anxiety, there's a number of things you can do. And you don't necessarily have to run off to a professional and have them medicated, have those experiences medicated. In fact, I'm not discouraging you if you need help. And there have been times where I have said to patients, you know what, we need help to get onto the other side of this. Once we've got this under control, then we can start implementing our strategies. But a situation is just too severe. So I always, in the case of mental health, want you to be checking in with your care providers, whoever they may be. But there are some things that I'd like you to consider that you can do at home. And I'm really using my notes tonight just because I'm so tired. Okay, so what's the first thing? What's the first thing do you think that you could be doing at home? You've got the TV on, you've got the radio on, you've got your Facebook feed. What do you think is the first thing that could be done to reduce your anxiety and worry? I'm gonna jump to the punchline and see if you agree with me.
Can I have one idea? This is where I bring her cup of tea. She hasn't had that yet today. There you go.
There you go. In my new Snoopy mug. The first thing, turn off the freaking news. Take a media vacation. Honestly, I think a lot of us have sort of been glued. Exactly, Kara, no news. A lot of us, including me, have been glued to the TV to see what's going on. And you know what? I probably could have got the same information over the last 2 years by watching about a quarter of the media that I watched. So, yeah, media fast. That's what we call it. We talk about intermittent fasting. We talk about juice fasting and water fasting. News fast. That's a new one for us, okay? So you can figure it out. And honestly, there's no FOMO there. You're not going to miss anything because remember all those sources? For years, we didn't watch the news, eh? For years. The only time I heard the news was when I was driving to the clinic and home. That was plenty. You know what? If there was something I missed, it didn't dramatically impact my life. So that's the first one. Turn off the news. So let's just check in here. Disconnect from stress and drama. Disconnect, Christine. Absolutely. Anxiety has been ongoing for months and years. However, breathing, meditation, gratitude, and positive thinking help. Dawn, you just stole like my last 10 minutes. But that's perfect. So the first one, abstain from the news. Okay. Practice mindfulness. I'm not seeing a young lady on the thread today, but a young patient of mine who suffers from anxiety shared with me the other day how helpful basic breathing was for her. So just being mindful of the breath and practice mindfulness, just being absolutely present in the moment, because anxiety is that, like, you're kind of outside your body, aren't you, when there's anxiety? So being present, being grounded, that brings us to a whole new place. Remember those apps like Thrive or Calm, or I can't remember, there's so many of them now. You can get them on your phone. You can set up reminders, that type of help is literally at your fingertips all the time.
Kara's doing a mini grumpy to gratitude challenge right now.
Awesome. You know what, Kara? You need to go into the group and tell us all about your grumpy to gratitude challenge. I love that.
Yep,
I'm totally going to steal that idea. Thank you. Practice some self-compassion. You're crazy with anxiety. Just bring it in. Put your hand on your heart and breathe beautiful green healing light into your heart. Why do I say green healing light? Because that's the color of the heart chakra. So the heart chakra, and green is generally a color for healing. So do a body scan. Start at the tips of your toes and be present in every single part of your body. Breathe into your feet. Breathe into your legs. Breathe into your hips. Breathe into your abdomen, just all the way up, and release with every exhale. Really release that sensation. You can share your fears with friends and family if you think they're open to hearing them. And you can ask them first, are you okay if I share? This, I'm feeling off. Um, do you mind if I share with you? Practice gratitude. So from grumpy to gratitude. Oh, I love that. Keep an emotions journal, how you're feeling. Journaling is just great, because it puts all this right here and right onto paper. And I don't mean keying, don't key your journal. Pick up a pen and write with it, because there's a certain connection between that brain and that hand. And most importantly, maintain a consistent sleep schedule is what I wrote down when I was thinking about this. But really, routine, routine, routine. The body loves routine. The body is grounded in routine. So don't be doing, you know what? I know this sounds crazy, but we were watching Family Feud for a brain break, literally right before we came on the air. And there was one question that said, how many nights a week do you stay up after midnight? And I was shocked. I said 1, Mike said 2. The answer was 7. So of all the people polled for that Family Feud question in the United States, the top answer was 7 nights a week people stay up after midnight. That's not cool. That's just not cool. Every hour of sleep before midnight is worth 2 hours after midnight. It's just not the same quality of sleep. And I know, I like that, Chris, 0. I know people say, oh, but I'm a night owl. Well, your body's not a night owl. Your body has very specific circadian rhythms that need to be honored in order for everything to function well. So you might be a night owl because your mom's cortisol levels were imbalanced when she was pregnant with you. It might just be bad behavior. You might be a night owl because you could never sleep because your gut was such a mess. But please understand that the natural state is the body sleeps when it's dark and does stuff when it's daylight. So routine, routine, routine. Another thing I'd like you to consider is catching yourself and being aware of when you're in a worry loop. It's like, okay, I get it. I'm worried about Mike freezing to death when his car drives off the road in the snowstorm. And change that and challenge those thoughts. So you can challenge those thoughts. I know I'm using this interesting, we'll say, example, but sometimes it's not far from the truth. So how would I challenge that crazy thought that Mike is freezing to death in the ditch covered with snow? Well, I could say, well, he's driving on a highway with 10,000 other people, so surely somebody else is going to find him. There's one way to interrupt that or to challenge those negative thoughts that are creating that worry loop. Or even just simply saying things like, you think that thought, and 2 questions. Is this true? And no, it's not true. Mike's not going to freeze to death in the ditch covered with snow. And is it helpful? Is it helpful thinking this? No, it's not helpful. So little questions that you can catch yourself for getting out of worry loops. My next one may surprise you because it's something you rarely hear me talk about, and that is the castor oil pack. So castor oil pack to your abdomen. Remember that vagus nerve is down at the base of your spine, but also, the castor oil pack just touches all of the viscera, doesn't it? So that non-specific anxiety seems to really respond well to the castor oil pack. So castor oil pack on the abdomen. What I like to do is just, take an essential oil and put a few drops right on the castor oil pack. Lavender is magical for this. It just displaces a lot of worry, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. So just put a few drops right in your castor oil pack, put that on your abdomen and let that soothe you. So somebody here said decompress, didn't they? Oh, Yoga Nidra. Chris, you're impressing me like crazy. But take steps to decompress. I don't know what that means to you. Some people might go fishing. Some people might go for a hike. I mean, I'm a big fan of connecting with nature. Go outside. Go outside. Interrupt all the shenanigans that are going on non-specifically in your body and very specifically in your head. And you don't have to go for a hike. You can go and sit on your back patio and look at nature, listen to the birds, smell the flowers and the soil. Just connect deeply. It's just another way of getting super grounded, right? And if you can have bare feet on the soil, even better, right? You're connecting with the electromagnetic fields of the earth. And I don't know if you know this, but the natural electromagnetic field of the body is the same hertz, the same measurement as that of the earth. And I believe it's 8 hertz. So that's what grounding is. It's actually connecting your electromagnetic fields with the electromagnetic fields of Mother Earth. So that's another great one. And last but not least, I suppose, the something I've always it's a mantra of my own, and when it was appropriate, I've shared it with people over the years, and that is action relieves anxiety. So, well, it could be any of the things that we've just talked about, but that's a general rule. So when you find yourself in a state, remember, action relieves anxiety. So when I was thinking of the 3-3-3 rule when it comes to anxiety. It's a rule that grounds us in the present moment. It creates mindfulness. It dissipates anxiety and worry. And some of you may know the 3-3-3 rule from dog training. It's not the same. The 3-3-3 rule for anxiety is first, name 3 sounds that you hear. The second is move 3 body parts, whether that's a finger or an arm or your head. And then point out 3 things that you see. Whenever you feel your brain going 1,000 miles an hour, try this exercise, and it will literally help bring you back to the present moment. But you can do anything, because just remember, action relieves anxiety. In fact, you could do the 3-3-3 exercise, or follow the 3-3-3 rule when you're outside on your patio looking at nature. Count 3 birds that you see. What are 3 sounds that you hear? What are 3 smells that you hear? I agree, Dawn. Meditation. Gardening is so therapeutic. And I remember I live for my yoga. I always have. Since I was 20 something, I just love my yoga. And I was in the garden. I was actually building a grass garden for Mike's birthday. And I got carried away and I totally missed my yoga class. And so I emailed my my yoga instructor. Did I say yoga or did I say meditation? Anyway, I emailed her and said, I am so sorry. I was out gardening and I totally, the time just slipped away. And she said, gardening is incredibly meditative. So she said, you didn't miss anything at all. So yes, indeed, it's therapeutic. Think about the everyday things that you can make therapeutic. So walking meditation. What is that about? It's about mindfulness. It's about being present. It's about thinking about your foot striking the earth. It's about pushing through. It's being mindful of every step. Once again, it's a way of bringing yourself into the present moment and distracting yourself, or changing the narrative away from the anxiety and the worry. So there are some general ideas for you. And I'm wondering, do you have any questions for me about anxiety and worry? And while you are answering, I'm just going to read some of these to make sure that I haven't missed anything. Oh, great. So Kara's going to post her Grumpy to Gratitude challenge in the group. And of course, Dawn shared with us that breathing, meditation, and gratitude and positive thinking help. Disconnecting, no news. Okay. Anger seems to be the energy in the air, especially right now with what's going on in Ottawa. Feeling fragile but hopeful. Really good words. You know, fragile. Sure. A lot of us are feeling fragile right now, right? Thank you for sharing that, Chris. Excellent. Okay. And I see, and I'm sorry, Langelle, I just realized that I missed your meditation. Or was it a meditation today? Oh, it just dawned on me. I am so sorry that I missed y'all. Okay. Well, there we go. There's our addressing anxiety, worry, and stress, and just understanding the little bit of difference between the three, and that we have all kinds of resources at our fingertips. And you know, sometimes when we're like in the thick of it, we don't feel like we have those resources, but at some point, just taking a breath and saying, okay, I got this, right? My feet are on the ground. Here's the 3-3 rule. Oh, look at those birds. Whatever it takes to just distract you. Bring yourself into the present moment can be a distraction from the anxiety and the worry, can't it? And I can't believe that I actually delivered you folks a message in a half an hour today. That in itself is a miracle. So be gentle with yourself. That's something I tell people all the time, to be gentle with yourself, right? Just when you're going crazy, or you think you're going crazy, put your feet in the soil and be gentle with yourself. Winter here, you better believe it, Kara. Okay, our meditation covered everything you spoke about tonight. Awesome, Langelle. We are on the same wavelength. So with that, I will say good night, and we'll talk to you next week. What's the 3-3?
I was just copying.
Oh, that's you. Okay, perfect. Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Have a great night.